And welcome back. And we are moving into our first conversation for this morning as we find out more about a sensitization session that is taking place in Belize. And it's talking about the results-based management systems. We'll get to clearly understand what that means for us with our guests that we have on set. We have Craig Beresford, who is the Director of Strategic Management for CARICOM. And we have the Deputy CARICOM Secretary General, Dr. Manorma Soeknandan. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So we know you are in the midst of this sensitization session, but this is a great opportunity for everyday Belizeans to be able to understand what's happening on the technical level in being able to educate technical persons on this system. So, but before we do, I wanted to talk individually just about your own areas of expertise and kind of what your expectations are coming into Belize for this session. Let's start with you.
Okay, good morning all, the people who are listening and who are watching the Channel 5. And it's quite a rainy day, I've noticed. But nevertheless, I think it's a very important program. So my field of expertise, I'm the Deputy Secretary General. I've done international relations and diplomacy, law, many things.
Yeah.
And within the Secretariat, well, the word says is you're the Deputy Secretary General, but all corporate functions, etc., also fall under the Office of the Deputy Secretary General. Finance, human resources, contracts, all of those things. And then we also have several directorates. We have a Directorate for Human and Social Development, headed by ASG. We also have the Directorate for Trade and Economic Integration. We have Council for Foreign, the Directorate for Foreign and Community Relations. And am I missing one?
No. General Counsel, Human and Social Development.
Human and Social Development and the Office of the General Counsel, Legal. Okay. And just to introduce Mr. Beresford, Director of the Strategic Management Unit. I said corporate functions, and he is the Director of the Strategic Management Unit, which also falls under the Office of the Deputy Secretary General. So actually, Mr. Beresford is really heading the task of implementation of the results-based management system. And if I may say, it's a tool how we are going to measure our results that we want to achieve within, not only within the Secretariat, but within our community.
Yeah.
And by using this tool, we want, for example, to see if things do not go well, if we don't achieve results. We all know, we all complain about the implementation deficit. It's taking too long, you know, to get results, years and so on, and often people blame the CARICOM Secretariat. But it would be good if we have it in a matrix format, and that's what it is going to be.
Yeah.
So it's very simple. I'll give you a clear example.
Yes.
Let's say you have a village, and the result you want to achieve after 2 years is you want to have economic growth of 5 or 10%. Okay? Your timeline, results-based management now. Your timeline to do it, you're giving yourself the timeline of 2 years. Okay? But you need to do a lot more, which means you have to create, for example, employment. You have to put people at work so that a spin-off will also be other social activities, which means yesterday you have this ice cream, Krabu ice cream. Okay, I'm giving you an example. That's something, yes, that's something unique. I have not seen it anywhere in the region. Okay, let's say now people want to set up this unique ice cream factory or company in this village. Okay, all the facilitation, etc., that will take, those are separate activities that you need to do within a certain timeline. Okay, now if you know that by the end of the 2 years you want to economic growth of 10%, then you will be able to track down which activities are taking place using this timeline in a timely manner, right? You will be able to see it. And the person who is monitoring, let's say the Ministry of Economic Affairs or Trade, who is monitoring this and evaluating this will see, but wait a minute, something here is not going right because we're not meeting timelines or nothing is taking place. So instead of waiting till the end, in a timely manner, you can already forecast, predict that we are going to face some problems, and timely you can intervene.
Yeah.
Maybe the person who wants to set up the company is not getting the finances or is having difficulties. And this person or the group of people, then you can call and say, okay, how can we facilitate, how can we support, so that in the end we can still achieve the result. Yeah. And then resources is very important. Yeah. How much resources do we have? Where can we look for resources? Do we have the resources? Yeah. Before, what we would do is you set up the plan and then you go and look for resources. We're doing it now the other way. You need to have the resources, because if you have a plan now and you're going to look for resources, it will take you 2 or 3 years before you get the resources before you can start. So you need to have your resources before you can plan your activities to achieve the results. So we're changing that, right? And that is where we're heading. So it's not going to be more action-oriented as such, but result-oriented. And maybe Mr. Beresford can give you some more technical details to better understand this. I'm just giving you the general overview.
All right, the system that we're introducing to Belize is anchored in our 5-year community strategic plan. So that is the first ever community-wide strategic plan that we have developed. We have over 27 special purpose regional institutions, and we have 15 sovereign states. What we're trying to do is to coordinate implementation. So 3 of the institutions are actually here in Belize. We have the 5 Cs, CARD, and we have CRFM. So essentially what the system does is to identify short, medium, and long-term results that we want to achieve.
Those 2 acronyms are?
CRFM is Caribbean Regional Fisheries Machine.
Mechanism.
Yes, mechanism. And 5 Cs is Caribbean Climate Change Center.
And CARD is our Agriculture Research and Development Institute.
Yes. So we have identified short, medium, and long-term results. And in RBM language, that is immediate, intermediate, and ultimate outcomes. So we want to achieve these specific results. So what we have done is to identify these change that we expect over the next couple of years. So at the varying level, we're not looking only at the long-term result DSG just mentioned, which is the improved unemployment and strong economic growth, but we look at the little things that we can achieve as we go through that journey. Because that is very important, because people want to hear about what you're achieving along the way. Because of course you can appreciate strong economic growth and reduce unemployment takes some time. But we want to be able to communicate to the public what we're achieving annually, how we have moved and progressed the integration movement. So essentially, in a nutshell, that is what it is that we're doing.
It seems to be a shift from looking at simply numbers, the quantitative data, to more of the qualitative data, talking about the impact. And the very little I know about M&E from the social sector especially, a lot of times your results are listed in how many people were sensitized, how many people attended a community outreach, how many villages you did a presentation. But what was different about this particular system, it's not just about reaching people, it's about documenting that there has been a change. So I didn't just teach you about proper fisheries management. You are now practicing. That is quite a shift in how you'll collect data and also in accountability. So what has been the feedback so far? You're 1 day in how equipped the agencies are to be able to make this shift.
What we did when we started to roll out this project is to establish what we call a CARICOM results-based management leadership group. This group consists of representatives nominated by each member state and also persons nominated from each of our regional institutions. So it's a relatively large group. What we did is that group, we ensured that their capacity were developed on the one hand, and then secondly, they were part of developing those KPIs, those key performance indicators, what it is that we're going to use to measure the success. So there was some degree of capacity building on their side. So in terms of their ability to implement, they are going to be the champions for us. So in their respective member states, they will be the ones promoting RBM. promoting the culture shift that we expect, because of course, you know, RBM, it's really a change in culture in terms of how you do things. Yeah. Because ironically, what you said a while ago is on point. Usually when persons report on projects, it's always about number of training, but what has changed as a result of that training? And that is what RBM is doing. So the project does not end here either. We are now examining a phase 2 and trying to get resources for that. And that will include increased capacity building in member states, not only champions, but other government ministries. So we're hopeful that we'll be able to be successful in terms of funding to be able to advance this process a bit more.
And if I may, our experience so far has been, because we have been to other member states and now also Belize, the perception, it's very positive, because I think people know where we're heading and that we have to change the way we work. We do the monitoring and evaluating. And for example, in Belize, Belize, actually, it's not a new phenomenon in Belize. Belize had started quite a few years ago with RBM. But it was clear yesterday, it was made very clear that each ministry, right, has really to do the change in mind shift. The culture of doing business, it has to change, which means you have to bring on board RBM, and it should become really your daily work to work with RBM. And we heard that in Jamaica, we're hearing that in Belize, because Jamaica, Belize, you're way ahead compared to other member states, and for that I must congratulate you. You started quite a few years ago, and many people are familiar with the concept. It's not strange in Belize. People are familiar, but it has to become a daily practice to work with RBM.
It seems very logical to be executing whatever work you're doing in whatever area with the impact in mind. And that's kind of how I understand what you expect this tool to do. But there's also a level of subjectivity involved as well in terms of measuring impact. And when you're talking about a human behavior change as well. So if I self-report and say, yes, I now believe that we should do X, Y, and Z to adapt to climate change, is that a change that can be recorded, not recorded? So how do you eliminate, and especially in any kind of data collection, the errors that may take place and the subjectivity that is also included when you're talking about measuring individual change?
We have, talking about data, we have approved our regional strategic statistics development strategy recently by our heads of government. A lot of training is being done in the area of collecting data and dissemination of data. Because in collecting data and disseminating data, all the actors should give the same definition to all the indicators, the way you collect and the way you disseminate. So there is no misunderstanding of what is meant by it. And for example, talking about impact. Let's say impact on gender for the same housing. Okay, let's say you have a housing project and you want to provide your people, or the government want to provide within its social sector and social package that they're giving the people for some basic housing, right? Now, when you talk about gender, what's the definition for gender? The impact on gender. It's clear that nowadays gender for our community, our Caribbean, is not only focusing on women. It includes men. Now, this definition should be understood by everyone when you enter your data. Otherwise, there will be a misconception there, right? And I mean, your whole data collection and the people, the way you disseminate and the way people will perceive it, it's going to be totally wrong, right? So those are some of the things that our statistical unit is working with right now, and also in all member states with funding from like Paris 21 and StatsCan and so on. And this is really a major issue. So understanding data, how to collect data, the definition, the dissemination, the impact, the indicators, it's very important. And that's why training is important. So within the statistical framework, a lot is being done, but we are also going to do training. And when it comes to verification, etc., we will have our audits. And the evaluators will go out in the field to check, to cross-check the data, and if it's valid, if it's credible data, etc. And for those things, of course, we need protocols. We have to develop protocols because, you know, gathering data, reading data, make it accessible, and so on. You cannot misuse things. Yeah. So a lot needs to be done, and we're
CARICOM is a concept developed as a tool during Federation, am I right? So it is supposed to be the economic tool for the Caribbean, not only for its individual parts, but for the Caribbean as a region. And when we look at our development, because I want to take it back a little, I just want to step out just a little as to the whole idea of what CARICOM is. And when we're doing the results-based management, I wanted us to separate not only for Belize and Jamaica, but where are we as a region to where we want to be, and how does this factor in to take us to where we are from being a garbage bin for products in the first world or in the developed world to being able to compete and to execute what we were supposed to do when we first started up in CARICOM.
You want me to go or you want to go?
Sure.
Okay.
You can go first and then
Well,
I'll take a peek.
CARICOM, it's not what, I would say what we are supposed to do, because we are CARICOM.
Yes, we are.
Okay, we are. CARICOM is not a balloon somewhere up in the air. It's us people. It's you, it's me, our politicians, our agricultures and farmers. Okay? So, yes, all of us. And we have to work together, also with the RBM, because if CARICOM fails, we fail. You and I, we fail. We are not doing something that we're supposed to do. Okay? And yes, we don't want to be the garbage bin and those types of things. It means we have to do something.
Yes.
And it might be, as I said, with the implementation deficit, decision-making is taking too long, that we are not doing things the way we should be doing it. Now, and to bring one of the changes, this is RBM, because even within the CARICOM Secretariat, we are using RBM. Okay? So our work program, etc., is different now. It's going to be different. We have started this year. We are coming with a report first quarter next year. Okay? Now, you mentioned Jamaica, Belize.
Yeah.
But, you know, we often think that we are way behind, but that's not the case. Other member states, like Suriname, within the Ministry of Finance and Planning, they also had started something. Barbados is also on board. I'm talking about countries where we have been. Haiti is also on board. And yes, there are several levels of economic development, but that should be one more reason why we should be looking at results. Because by using RBM, we can say that, okay, these things are happening in certain countries already, so you don't have to focus on those things. And you are going to focus on becoming international competitive. You don't only look within CARICOM, because our market is not big.
Correct.
And I think that's the big mistake we make as CARICOM people, as CARICOM nationals. We are only focusing within the community. But you can export within or import as much as you can. It's limited, right? You have to go out there. We have to go out there. We have to become international competitive. And with what? With products that are unique. And I just gave you an example, sir, of the Crabo ice cream.
Ice cream.
Nowhere in the region will you find it. Okay? So it's unique. And we're talking about production integration, meaning you have to look which country has the natural resources. Where can I find the human resources? Where can I find the financial resources? Let us come together. Let us set up these companies. And I'm giving a very simple example, right? And let us export, not only within CARICOM. Let us go out there, right? And all those countries then who have come together to set up they will all benefit, because it's employment. Those who have invested in it, those who came with the human resources, all will benefit. And that's how we should be working. But unfortunately, one is producing detergents, other one also detergents. How much can you compete on detergents within our community? Right? What choice? Yes, people have a choice, but companies are going to complain. Okay? So it is really, we have to go out there. And again, having several levels of economic development should not be seen as not being able to use RBM. one more reason to use RBM. Because our regional institutions are also part of this, okay? So through what the data the regional institutions will enter, you sitting at home, your minister sitting here in Belize will also be, okay, these, let's say renewable energy, these are the projects going on in, I don't know, some of our islands, and Belize also needs it. Once you already know that, okay, these islands have the funding available, you don't have to focus on them. Now you can focus on Belize or another country, member state, where you really need funding. But currently what is also happening is that you have duplication and triplication of funding, right, for the same type of projects. That is also taking place because you don't have the oversight of which IDPs are working in which member states, what are they doing, right? And often then we complain again about, you know, yeah, well, the country is saturated, you don't have enough people to deal with the projects and those types of things. But, you know, our countries are very small. You have only 1 or 2 persons. You're dealing with CARICOM, you're dealing with CARIFORUM, you're dealing with AC, with all of it, right? So how much can you do? So RBM will really bring in picture, will visualize. You can see what is being done, in which country, by whom, accountability, the timeline, and what you want to achieve.
And I wanted to touch the accountability portion because it seems that where the paradigm shift has to take place from moving from just numbers and the quantitative data to really seeing an impact in the work that you're doing, it also means there is a level of transparency that those who are implementing will have to have. It can be a good effort in being able to educate, sensitize, and I'm using basic examples that people can understand. Indeed. But it doesn't mean it will affect the change that you want. And I will then have to report, well, I did all the workshops, everything my strategy dictated, but I changed 0 persons or 0 actions.
Well, firstly, before I respond, I'd like to add a bit to what DSG said.
Sure.
What we intend to do, we're going to have national targets, and we're also going to have regional targets. So it's going to be a roll-up in terms of what we want to achieve. The strategic plan specifically has 6 core pillars. We have building economic resilience, building social resilience, building environmental resilience, and building technological resilience. And we have 2 drivers, which is revamping our entire community governance, because we talk about the implementation deficit. The other strong component is the decision-making deficit. We take a very long time to take decisions. Of point and in fact,
don't have the money.
Well, there are several issues, but I can tell you this. The issue on contingent rights in terms of enabling persons to move with their family and to get access to basic service in different countries, that took 14 years for a decision to be taken. 14 years. So we have challenges, and these are some of the things we want to overcome when we look at our issue of community governance. Then we have the area about community unity. How do we treat each other? Are we one? Are we different? How do you feel when you go to Trinidad? How do you feel when you go to Barbados? So we have to treat with those specific issues also. But to target in on the issue of economic growth, strong economic growth, which is what we want. On the strategy side, we have 4 core things that we want to do. We want to accelerate the implementation of the CSME, which is the single market and economy. That is very important. And under that strategy, we have things such as regulatory, administrative, and institutional reform. So you have several things that member states will have to do to ensure that we get there. Once we do that, we look also at the macro side, because we want to create what we call a single economic space. Then we speak about building our competitiveness. We have to look at the issue of energy. A lot of us, the costs to manufacture your good, when you have the energy component in, we're no longer competitive. We look at areas such as our agricultural sector, fisheries, which, you know, so you can twin those two, and tourism and other sectors. So we look at developing those sectors so we can be able to compete effectively. And last but not least, once we get those right, we start to integrate into the global economy. So we have been treating with those issues also, or trade agreements with third states, see how best we can create access to markets for CARICOM region. But specifically to address your question in terms of transparency, One of the things we're going to be doing differently is that on an annual basis, we'll be producing what we call a results-focused annual report. Our first annual report will be published the first quarter of next year. What it will do is detail all of the results that we expect, and then it will also break down what we call compliance level indicators in terms of which country would have implemented what they should have implemented. So in terms of transparency, more persons will start to see exactly where we have the log jams, where the issues are, and why we are not getting to the results that we want to get to.
Can I follow up?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Can I follow up on that? Because
Sure.
I can't, it's the UE in me.
Yes.
You know, but I can't separate the economy without the political will.
Yes.
And results-based management exposes a political flaw, which is a politician doesn't want you to come in and say, listen, we have not implemented what we're supposed to do in terms of gender. Or economically, we have, in fact, digressed in terms of our progress. And to have the integrity, we live, it's in 16 years to implement just moving around CARICOM member states. Imagine dealing with issues which expose the hand of, in Belize.
Exposes failure.
Yeah, exposes failure, that's my point. In Belize, we have simple internal issues of where we just are trying to get compliant with Integrity Commission and not being able to do those things. What allows for the buy-in? Because I'm sure we're not naive to think that politicians will simply open the door and let CARICOM from outside affect their political careers. What do we have in place to ensure that there is that integrity and accountability, that numbers aren't messed up or that the system and process isn't stifled to not expose the political backside? And when I say backside, I mean not
the other side.
The other side. The not side out scene of the political directorate.
The political will has already been expressed. I mentioned the regional statistical RSDS when it comes to data, because data is important. We all know we're very protective of data. Eh?
Yes.
It's like,
but we don't have it.
Yes. And even those who have it, they don't want to share it.
Correct.
And that's within countries, but also between and among countries. Fine. But the political will has been expressed. So,
that's what politicians do.
yes, I'm not finished.
They don't give you it.
I'm not finished. Okay. Now with RBM, you can, when things do not take place or you do not achieve the results, you can hold them accountable. And the duty of holding them accountable, even it can be the CARICOM Secretariat. Maybe one of the actors is the CARICOM Secretariat, or it is Belize, right? So who in Belize are you holding accountable? Let me give you a clear example. Competition policy, something I know about. It's been taking so long, right?
What is that?
Competition policy is policy and law to become competitors, dealing with competition, fair competition, if I may say so that you not use unlawful rules, regulation, and activities to push, for example, people out of the market.
Yeah.
Those things. It's a lot. But by you asking me that question, that trigger, okay. Anyway, fine. It means a lot needs more. It's been taking a while. So the result, if you put it in the RBM mechanism, this tool, competition, law and regulations and policy, you should have had it quite a few years ago. But it's still somewhere. And yesterday we heard, okay, it's being finalized now. Now, who is the authority in Belize responsible when it comes to competition, policy, etc.? It cannot be the Prime Minister. It means it's the ministry. So the minister. And within the ministry, it might be, I don't know which unit or which director. So that person is accountable, right? So when it comes to transparency, openness, etc., there is where you go. And you ask, but wait a minute, what is happening? Why is this taking so long? Okay? And that person will be held accountable for why there has been no push for it. Because it means he has to do some things within his ministry. Make contact with the AG's office, your Solicitor General, to approve or review the draft, etc., right? Send it to Parliament. But then in Parliament, the Speaker of the House, or I don't know how you work, I assume you have several documents that have to go through Parliament, when was it submitted, and those types of things. So you really can hold people, institutions, accountable, authorities accountable for when things are not being done, but also give them credit for when things are being done in a timely basis. Because we often think a lot has not been done, but I hope next year's report will show us that a lot has been done within CARICOM. But we tend to focus too much on those things that are not done. But a lot has been done, I must say that, okay? So,
well, let's come back to the sensitization session that has already started. And I want to get what you have been hearing in terms of the feedback. While we have been using the RBM system, and you spoke of CARICOM also instituting it in your own secretariat, what was the feedback yesterday?
All right.
no, you go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
The feedback has been quite positive, and there is very sincere interest. I was very pleased with the session with the parliamentarians. They asked quite a bit of questions.
What were their primary concerns?
Pardon me?
What were their primary concerns?
Well, it was not necessarily concerns, and ironically, it was more about commending the effort. As a matter of fact, what it shows, and we have been seeing it going around with all the other member states, is that we also have a communication deficit. A lot of the things we're telling them about, they are hearing for the first time, and the information is actually sent to member states, but apparently it's not being channeled to the right entities. And the media has a very important role to play. So we hope that when the report is published, we can start to have discussion around some of the things about CARICOM. What we have done, what we have not done. How do you get that groundswell support to ensure that we can push to move the things forward? But so far, we have been getting positive feedback, and they want to be more involved. As a matter of fact, I think there was a suggestion that we have another session with parliamentarians, just to show that the interest, the degree of interest that they have with this new system that we are implementing. So today we are going to be meeting with a caucus of CEOs. We're also going to meet with stake actors. So we expect also to get questions from them, and also to enlist their support as we advance this process.
I'd imagine the session with the parliamentarians would be an area where you'd have a communication deficit for the simple fact of how ministries and governments work. It's more the technocrats that would be working, and that's where we need, or we all need, the political buy-in for any shift in a system. Now, what I'm wondering, if we're changing the data, or if we want to move towards a change to the data and how it's being collected, it effectively changes the strategies. You cannot continue doing the same process you were, because we are results. If we were results oriented, we're looking for those numbers once again. But now if we're looking for impact, it means just the strategy as to how we were going about trying to achieve it will change. How equipped, what training, capacity building, are we in being able to ensure that the technocrats will be the ones executing? When we do the if and when, if then I should say, if we want to achieve this, then we have to do that. It's a new thought process, a new strategy, and also will require the buy-in from those who will be providing the funding as well.
Well, the ones who provide the funding, they are already using it. And like the EU, UNDP, and so on, they are all using it. And that's one more reason why we have to be results oriented, because they're looking for it also. And talking about parliamentarians, parliamentarians have to be on board. The reason being, when they're in parliament and they want to question, but why is it not taking place and so on, and where are we with this, you need to have the data, which means you have to have your RBM mechanism in front of you, because it will be accessible. The report will be accessible to all. Okay, of course, we will develop protocols in relation to security and not misusing it and so on. But that's how you will hold your own people accountable. But also there is something else, sustainability, continuity is very important. So that when you have a change in countries, you don't fall in a gap, but that it's easy to continue, right? And that's, I think, a very important and a crucial reason why parliamentarians have to be involved. And we had the same concerns also expressed in other member states where we met with parliamentarians and from both sides, opposition and coalition, both sides. So that is something we really have to work with. But again, communication, sharing, information sharing. And when I'm talking about sharing information, it's just not this is it, but telling people, trickle it down really in what we are doing and how it will impact you, but also what is requested from you to do to achieve the success or the result. So it's just more, it's a bit more than just giving you a paper to read and so on. And that is something we, all of us, I think, and especially the media, you know, you have to join with the CARICOM Secretariat, but also internally with ministries and so on to help us. We can't do it alone. We need you on board to help us to make that information trickle down to all our people in simple words, because that is something else. You can have documents, very technocratic written things and terminology and so on.
And bureaucracy.
And bureaucracy. You know,
that was my point on transparency.
Yeah, but you have to make it very simple, you know, for everyone to understand the language.
Can I ask this? Because I'm looking at the international trend. America is adjusting itself in terms of economic placement with its economic agreements. England is Brexit. CARICOM has been around for a while, and Belize is in a specific place where we have options. Unlike some of the territories who are island states, they're almost limited in terms of economically what they can do, and it is of far more benefit to them to come together. But Belize is in a Central American location. When we're doing this results-based management system, we must look at it not only inside the box, but outside the box. They say nothing good comes from inside the box, that's why we have to think outside the box. And what happens if Belize looks at our placement in terms of the results that we're getting, and we're saying that this is probably not beneficial to us?
Sir, I can give you many examples. Unfortunately, I don't have my figures with me. Belize is getting millions out of CARICOM. Okay? We have so many projects, be it agriculture, fisheries, energy, economic, within the context of economic integration, spent so many money when it comes to competition, consumer protection, all these kinds of things, right? But also at the main political front, Belize is getting a lot of benefits. For example, you have candidates, you have representatives of Belize in regional and international institutions, right? Yes?
Yes.
Even if it's only 5 or 10. Let me tell you something. If you had to go to each of the 15 member states and ask for support, do you know how much it would cost you? What you have to do now, or what is being done currently, just go to one COFCOR meeting. You present the candidates. They don't have to be there, just the minister, right? And if you have no competitors, the rule is you get the support from the 15 member states. So you don't have to spend and travel all over the place to ask for support. That's a benefit that you will not get if you're not in CARICOM, okay? And CARICOM might be small, but within the OAS context, you have 15 votes. So when you are part of the OAS human rights, whatever, and something, you have 15 already, okay? So again, we often think that we're not benefiting, but there is a lot to benefit from. And yes, Belize, Guyana, and Suriname are on the continents. And yes, you have UNASUR and you have SICA and so on. One more reason why you could use CARICOM, right? And with CARICOM, you can do a lot, be it economically, investment-wise, etc., okay, in the rest. Because you can become the door for CARICOM in Central America. So we have to use the opportunities. And you will not be able to do it alone. You need the support of the rest, like if you want to export in the rest of the region and become internationally competitive, let us join forces. That's what CARICOM is about, and it's in the treaty. Let us join forces. We have to come together. We have to integrate our production processes. And what is unique, that is where we have to become exporters and become internationally competitive.
And I think that's a great closing point for this conversation. We thank you very much for coming in and talking about what is happening at this time. And I know you're going to continue now with the CEO caucus. So thank you for taking the time this morning.
Thank
you very much.
Best of luck.
Thank
We're going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we'll be talking about the Helping Early Leavers program for young girls who have not completed school. So stay tuned.